In this webinar, we will be discussing some of the common mistakes made when performing a COBIT 5 conformant assessment of process capability. A common mistake with COBIT assessments is to use the COBIT process descriptions as a checklist of requirements. While the COBIT PAM and Enabling Process Guide provides support for the assessment process, the effectiveness of the assessment is dependent on the skills and judgment of the assessors, and in particular the lead assessor, who must have knowledge of both the assessment process and COBIT. In other words, not every activity and work product described in the COBIT PAM or process descriptions is required. There may be activities and work products not described in COBIT that are to be included in the assessment. Therefore, the lead assessor must direct the assessment requirements. A common mistake with COBIT assessments is that the assessment input is not defined prior to the data collection phase of the assessment and approved by the sponsor of the assessment or the sponsor's delegated authority. In other words, the assessment scope must be finalized before the assessment commences. A common mistake is to not start with identifying the process instances required to achieve the selected process outcomes. Every COBIT process has a number of potential outcomes that will satisfy the process purpose and align with the enterprise goals. If every process outcome is not required, then it makes sense that not all process activities and work products are required. Prior to the start of the assessment, the required process instances, process activities, and related work products must be identified and agreed with the sponsor. The aim of scoping the assessment as part of the assessment initiation is to focus the assessment on the business needs of the enterprise. This reduces the overall effort involved with the assessment. A common mistake is to not map the enterprise in-house processes to the COBIT process model so as to adapt COBIT to the enterprise's needs. The structure and terminology of the processes used within the enterprise will not align exactly with the COBIT 5 processes. During the initial stage of the assessment, the in-house processes and terminology should be mapped to the COBIT 5 processes. COBIT 5 process instances that are not required should be removed from the assessment scope. Mapping enterprise processes to COBIT processes is made easier if a tool is used to record each link between an enterprise process activity or work product and the COBIT process activity or work product. A common mistake is to not set realistic target capability levels. While the first consideration should be the impact on the enterprise if a process is non-existent or not working effectively or efficiently, the second consideration should be what is a realistic target capability level. Targeting unnecessarily high capability levels will increase the level of effort. Level 1 will be a significant milestone. For many, targeting capability level 3 will be unrealistic and expensive. It is also generally understood that the higher the capability, the more costly it will be to operate the process. A common mistake is to not decide on an assessment tool during the planning stage. During the initial stage of the assessment, the in-house processes and terminology should be mapped to the COBIT 5 processes. A tool can assist with the detailed mapping of the processes and collating of the evidence that will be used by the assessor to assign ratings to the process attributes for each process assessed, and in recording the ratings as the set of process profiles. Depending on the processes to be reviewed, there is potentially a large amount of data to be collected. The plan should be to collect an appropriate level of evidence and record it in line with the requirements of class and scope of assessment prior to commencing the assessment. A common mistake is to not define how the assessment data will be collected, recorded, stored, analyzed, and presented during the planning stage. It is important that a consideration be given to what evidence is required and the type of evidence that will be appropriate. It is necessary to define the assessment input prior to the data collection phase of the assessment and have this approved by the sponsor of the assessment or the sponsor's delegated authority. The data collection strategy should ensure that appropriate level of evidence is collected and recorded in line with the requirements of class and scope of the assessment. A common mistake is to not prepare in advance examples of the types of evidence required for use by those who will be interviewed during the assessment. Advanced preparation by the assessor will assist the process participants in knowing what evidence should be available during any discussions or meetings. A common mistake is to not gather sufficient evidence for the results of the assessment to be trusted. In general, the primary source of evidence will come from interviews, which will be confirmed through an examination of work products, and from base practices for processes being assessed to see whether the process outcomes are being achieved. In some cases, it could involve working through the process to better understand the inputs, outputs, and transformation activities that deliver the expected outcomes. Contact us for more information about conducting COBIT 5 process capability assessments, or to obtain information about a COBIT 5 assessment tool and the next COBIT 5 assessor course and certification exam.